If I had known what was waiting for me that night, I never would have stepped through those doors. The Evergreen Inn was supposed to be just another dead-end night shift, quiet, boring, easy money. But from the moment I walked in, something felt wrong. The silence was too deep, the air was too still. And when the phone rang for the first time at 12:03 a.m., I should have ignored it. I should have turned around and walked away. Because by the time I realized I wasn't alone in that hotel, it was already too late. I should have called in sick. That was my first thought as I walked into the lobby of the Evergreen Inn for my overnight shift. It wasn't anything specific, just that nagging, gut-level discomfort you feel when something's off. The air smelled stale, like old carpet and industrial cleaner. The overhead lights flickered just enough to be annoying. And the silence in this place at night was suffocating. But I needed the money. My name's Dan, by the way. I'm 27, working 2 jobs to keep my head above water. The night shift at the Evergreen was supposed to be easy sit at the front desk, check in the occasional guest, make sure no one burns the place down. I'd been here 3 weeks. It wasn't the worst gig, but it wasn't great either. The place was old, built in the 80s, barely updated since. Faded floral wallpaper, vending machines that ate your money, and an elevator that made noises like it was one ride away from killing someone. Most nights were boring. I'd sit behind the desk, scroll through my phone, and count the hours until sunrise. But that night was different. 12:03 a.m., the first call. The phone rang, sharp and sudden, in the dead quiet lobby. I jumped, then exhaled, shaking my head. Evergreen Inn, front desk, no answer. Hello? Still nothing. Just faint static, like someone was breathing on the other end. I hung up. Wrong number, I figured. Happens sometimes. But something about it unsettled me. 1:15 a.m., the man in the hallway. I was behind the desk, half dozing, when the security monitor flickered. We had an old set of cameras covering the halls and entrances, grainy black and white feeds straight out of a bad horror movie. On the screen, someone stood at the far end of the hallway on the 3rd floor. A man. He was tall, wearing a dark suit, not moving, just standing there, facing away from the camera. I leaned forward, squinting at the monitor. "Hello," I called out, even though I knew he couldn't hear me. Nothing. Then, without warning, he turned. But there was something wrong about it. The motion wasn't natural. Too slow, too deliberate, like he was aware of me watching. I picked up the phone and dialed the room service extension. "Hey, Mark, you up?" Mark was the overnight maintenance guy. A little weird, but decent enough. "MH, what?" His voice was thick with sleep. "There's a guy on 3, just standing there." Mark grumbled something, then sighed. "I'll check it out." I kept my eyes on the monitor. The man didn't move. Then, just as Mark stepped into the hallway on camera, the screen glitched. A brief burst of static, and when it cleared, the man was gone. I swallowed hard. Mark scratched his head, then turned to the camera and shrugged. Nothing there. I forced out a chuckle. Guess I need sleep. But I didn't believe that. The phone rang again. I hesitated before answering. Evergreen Inn, front desk. This time, a voice, faint, whispering. "Room 308. Then, a click. I stared at the receiver in my hand, cold spreading through my chest. Room 308 hadn't been occupied in months. It was under renovation, stripped down, furniture covered in white sheets, carpet half ripped up. I pulled up the camera feed for the 3rd floor, and my stomach dropped. The door to room 308 was open. I should have called the cops. I should have left, but instead, I grabbed the master key card and took the elevator up. The hallway was silent, the kind of silence that hums in your ears. The door to 308 was cracked open, just enough to see inside. I pushed it the rest of the way. The room was dark, cold. Dust hung in the air. The furniture was still covered. Nothing looked disturbed. But then I noticed the closet door. It was open. A sliver of blackness yawned beyond it. My breath came shallow. I didn't want to look, but I had to. I stepped forward, heart hammering, reached out, pulled the door open, and there was someone inside. I staggered back, choking on a shout. It was the man from the hallway, standing in the closet, motionless. His face was wrong, pale and stretched, mouth just a little too wide, eyes sunk in black pits. Then he stepped forward. I slammed the door and ran. I don't remember how I got back to the lobby. The next thing I knew, I was behind the desk, gasping for breath, my hands shaking. The monitors flickered. Every camera, every single one showed that man, in the hallways, in the stairwell, in the goddamn lobby. But I didn't see him, only on the screens. And then, the lobby phone rang. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. It rang again, and again. I reached for it with numb fingers, pressing it to my ear. A whisper, right next to me. "Behind you." I dropped the phone and bolted. I locked myself in the back office, turned on every light, sat with my back to the wall, eyes locked on the door. The hotel was silent again, too silent. I could feel something watching, waiting. The minutes crawled by. Then, at 4:59 a.m., the camera shut off. Every screen went black, and in the reflection of the dark monitor, I saw him, standing right behind me. I don't remember screaming. I don't remember running. All I know is that when I finally stumbled outside into the early morning light, gasping like I'd been drowning, the hotel behind me was empty, like nothing had ever happened. I quit that morning, didn't even grab my last paycheck. But before I left, I looked up the history of the Evergreen Inn. In 1987, a guest in room 308, a man in a dark suit, was found dead in his closet. Only, the security footage from that night showed something impossible. He never entered the room. The door opened on its own. And when the staff found him, his mouth was open, like he died mid-scream. I don't know what I saw that night, but I know one thing. I will never work another night shift again. If there's one thing I've learned in this job, it's that most 911 calls are bullshit. Drunks fighting in parking lots, domestic disputes that settle the moment we show up, teenagers daring each other to call in fake emergencies. It's a whole lot of nonsense, night after night. But sometimes you get a call that sticks with you. This was one of those calls. I'm Officer Greg Foster, 35 years old, 6 years with the department. I've seen my share of weird shit, but nothing like what happened that night at the Willowcrest Hotel. It was a quiet Tuesday, one of those slow nights where you pray for a traffic stop just to stay awake. My partner Torres was driving, sipping on his third gas station coffee. We were talking about the game from last night when the radio crackled. Unit 214. Respond to a noise complaint at Willowcrest Hotel, 1738 Hamilton Avenue, room 908. I sighed. A noise complaint? At a hotel? Torres smirked. Some rich prick doesn't like their neighbor watching TV too loud. Probably, I muttered. Let's get it over with. We pulled into the lot 10 minutes later. The Willowcrest wasn't fancy, but it wasn't a dump either. 12 floors, old but clean, mostly business travelers and tourists passing through. The night manager was waiting for us in the lobby, a skinny guy in a wrinkled shirt with nervous eyes. "You the one who called it in?" I asked. He nodded. "Guests started complaining about an hour ago. Loud noises from room 908. Banging, furniture scraping, voices, but that room's supposed to be empty." Torres raised a brow. "You sure no one's in there?" "Positive. It's been vacant for 2 weeks. Renovations." That got my attention. "So how the hell is there noise coming from it?" The manager hesitated. I don't know, but I had security check it. They knocked, used the master key. No one inside, but the noise kept going. I exchanged a look with Torres. Great. Either we were dealing with squatters or something was seriously off. "All right," I said. "Let's check it out." We took the elevator up. The hallway was long, dimly lit, a little too quiet. I glanced at Torres. "Hear anything?" He shook his head. "Nothing." We walked to room 908. The door looked normal, no signs of forced entry. I knocked. "Police! Anyone in there?" Silence. Torres tried the handle. Locked. He turned to the manager. "Key." The guy hesitated, then handed it over. Torres slid the key card in, and the lock clicked. He pushed the door open, and my stomach dropped. The place was a wreck. Furniture overturned. The bed shoved against the far wall. The lamp on the floor shattered. But the weirdest part? The walls. Deep scratches ran from floor to ceiling, like something with claws had been dragging itself across them. Torres muttered, "The hell happened in here?" The air felt wrong. Heavy, like the room hadn't been aired out in years. I stepped inside. "Hello? Anyone here?" Silence. I checked the closet. Empty. The bathroom. Empty. Torres stood near the window, frowning. "This doesn't make sense, man. If no one's here, who the hell made the noise?" The manager hovered by the door, shifting uneasily. That's why I called you. I turned back to the room. Something was off. I could feel it, pressing in, like we weren't alone. And then, the bathroom door slammed shut. Torres and I spun, weapons drawn. I lunged forward, yanked the door open. Nothing. The bathroom was empty. I looked at Torres. His face was pale. Did you see? A sound cut him off. A soft, wet breathing. From under the bed, I went ice cold. We moved in sync, Torres to one side, me to the other, guns ready. I crouched, bracing myself, and lifted the bedskirt. Nothing, just darkness. But for a split second, I swore I saw something. Something pulling back into the shadows. We're done, Torres said, voice tight. Let's go. I didn't argue. We left, locking the door behind us. Back in the lobby, the manager's hands were shaking. I have something you might want to see. He led us to his office, pulled up the hotel security feed. Check this out. The footage showed the ninth floor hallway. At first, nothing, just the empty corridor. Then, the door to room 908 opened, slowly, by itself. No one came out. No one went in. Just that open door. And then, at 3:12 a.m., the feed glitched. When it cleared, a figure stood just outside the room. Tall. Wrong? Its head was tilted too far to the side, like its neck had been broken. Torres swore under his breath. And then, the figure snapped toward the camera. Not moved, not turned, snapped. Like it knew we were watching. The screen cut to static. The manager was pale. I don't know what that is. I swear I don't. Neither did we. We wrote our report. No intruder, no sign of forced entry, no explanation. Officially, we found nothing. But Torres put in for a transfer the next morning. And me? A week later, I got a call from the hotel. The cleaning lady refused to go back to room 908, said she heard scratching from inside the walls. I told them to call someone else. Because I don't go near that place anymore, and I never will. I should have switched hotels. That thought ran through my head at least a dozen times before I finally admitted to myself that something was seriously wrong with the place. But by then, it was too late. I travel a lot for work, conferences, client meetings, the usual corporate grind. It's exhausting, but it pays the bills. I'd stayed in my fair share of hotels, fancy ones, cheap ones, even a couple of sketchy ones that made me sleep with one eye open. But the Hilford Plaza? That place was different. It wasn't the worst hotel I'd ever seen, but there was something off about it from the moment I checked in. It was old, not in a charming, historic way, but in a neglecé. The carpet smelled damp, the wallpaper was peeling at the edges, and the lighting in the hallways was dim, casting everything in a sickly yellow hue. But I was tired, it was late, and I figured one night wouldn't kill me. I was wrong. My room was 605 near the end of the hallway. The first thing I noticed was that the walls were thin. I could hear everything, the hum of the vending machine down the hall, the muffled ding of the elevator, and, unfortunately, my next-door neighbors. They were in 603. A couple, from the sound of it. Their voices were low, almost whispered, but there was something unnerving about the way they spoke. A strange rhythmic murmur, back and forth, like they were repeating the same conversation over and over. I figured maybe they were foreign, speaking a language I didn't understand, but then I heard my name. It was faint. I wasn't even sure at first. I turned off the TV, listening, and there it was again. A voice low and rasping, murmuring from the other side of the wall. He's in 605. My blood ran cold. I sat there, frozen, waiting to hear more. Nothing. Then, slowly, the murmuring resumed. The same low, rhythmic conversation. I told myself I'd misheard. Maybe it was paranoia, or maybe I was just exhausted from the long flight. Either way, I turned on some white noise and forced myself to sleep. I woke up feeling uneasy. Something about the place lingered. At the conference, I couldn't concentrate. My mind kept drifting back to the strange murmuring, the way my name had crept into it like a thread woven through a larger, unreadable pattern. By the time I got back to the hotel, it was almost midnight. I stepped off the elevator onto the 6th floor, and immediately, I felt it. The hallway was wrong. It took me a second to realize what had changed. The paintings. Every few feet, there were these generic framed prints, cheap hotel art, but tonight, they were all different. Before, They had been landscapes. Now they were portraits. All of them black and white, and all of them watching me. I swallowed hard and hurried to my room, telling myself I was imagining things. Then, as I passed room 603, I heard it again, the murmuring, only now it wasn't muffled by the walls. It was clear, like the door was cracked open. I hesitated. Some instinct inside me screamed, "Don't look," but I did. Just for a second. The door to 603 was open an inch, and in that narrow gap, I saw an eye, wide, unblinking, watching me. I bolted into my room and locked the door. I should have left. I even packed my bags. But when I tried to book a last-minute room somewhere else, everything nearby was full. A festival or a convention, something had the whole damn city booked up. So I stayed. Just one more night, I told myself. That was my second mistake. By now I refused to turn off the lights. I put the TV on for background noise, anything to drown out that whispering from next door. But sometime around 2, the power went out. TV off, lights off. Even my phone, still at 40%, died instantly. And then the murmuring started again. But this time, it wasn't coming from 603. It was coming from inside my room. I couldn't breathe. My chest locked. I turned slowly. The closet door was open. It had been closed before I knew it had. And standing inside was a man. No, not a man. A shape, tall and stretched, its face smudged like a photograph blurred beyond recognition. And it was murmuring, that same rhythmic whisper, a voice layered over itself, like two mouths speaking in unison. I stumbled back, but my body felt heavy, like the air itself was pressing me down. The figure tilted its head, and then it spoke, but its mouth didn't move. The voice was inside my head. You shouldn't have stayed. I ran, didn't even grab my bags, just ran. I don't even remember getting to the lobby. The night clerk barely looked up as I burst through the front doors into the freezing night air. I didn't stop running until I found a cab. The next day, I sent a coworker to grab my stuff. When he got back, he looked at me funny. Said you were in 607, he told me. I frowned. No, 605. He shook his head. Nah, man, they had you in 607. The key card even says it. I didn't believe him. But when I checked my booking confirmation, 607, I never stayed in 605, and there was no 603. The hotel only had even numbered rooms. I checked out that same day, and I will never stay in a hotel again. I should have listened to my gut. It wasn't anything specific at first, just an odd sense of unease when I stepped in ease, Diana, eyes 10. The air smelled stale, like it had been cycled through the vents one too many times, and the lighting was just a little too dim. But I was exhausted. A 7-hour drive will do that to you. I was in town for work, some corporate training thing, and so. 3 days of mind-numbing presentations about synergy and team building, a kind of nonsense that makes you wonder if you're slowly losing your soul. I wasn't thrilled about staying in a hotel, but I wasn't about to drive back and forth. So, I took the keycard from the receptionist, an older woman who barely looked up from her screen, and made my way to the elevator. A little about me. My name's Evan. I'm 32. I don't believe in ghosts, monsters, or anything like that. But I do believe in instincts, and mine told me that something was off. I should have left the moment I reached my floor. The hallway was unnervingly quiet, the kind of silence that makes your ears ring. The carpet was faded, patterned in swirling reds and golds that looked like they belonged in a casino. I counted the doors as I walked: 927, 928, 929, 930. Then I stopped. Room 931 wasn't at the end of the hall where it should have been. Instead, the door stood slightly ajar. I hesitated. Had the cleaning staff forgotten to close it, or was someone already inside? I pushed the door open slowly. The room was normal. Bed, desk, TV. The same generic artwork you see in every mid-range hotel. Everything was in its place. No signs of forced entry, nothing out of the ordinary. I stepped inside and flicked the light switch. The lamps glowed a dull yellow, barely illuminating the corners of the room. I shrugged off the weird feeling and set my suitcase down. Just my imagination, I told myself. But then I noticed the closet door. It was open just a crack. A tight, creeping sensation crawled up my spine. I didn't leave it open. Taking a deep breath, I walked over and pulled it open the rest of the way. Empty. I exhaled, shaking my head. I was being ridiculous. Maybe the cleaning staff had just done a half-assed job. Either way, I was too damn tired to care. I locked the door, double-checked it for good measure, and collapsed onto the bed. For a moment, everything felt normal. And then, at 3:12 a.m., I woke up. At first, I didn't know why. The room was dark, the only sound the distant hum of the hotel's ventilation system, but then I heard it, a soft click. The closet door. I turned my head slowly. My breath caught in my throat. The door was open. Wide open. A shiver ran through me. I sat up, heart hammering. I reached for the lamp, fumbling in the darkness until, click, the light flicked on. The closet was empty. I told myself the door must have swung open on its own. Maybe I didn't close it properly before bed. Maybe the air conditioning caused it to move. I didn't believe a damn word of it. I got up, closed the closet again, and shoved a chair in front of it, just in case. Then I went back to bed, forcing myself to ignore the unease gnawing at my stomach. I must have drifted off, because the next time I opened my eyes, the red glow of the clock read 4:47 a.m., and the chair was moved. Not knocked over, not pushed aside. Moved, as if someone had carefully pulled it away. The closet door was open again. A feeling of raw, animal terror gripped me. My mouth was dry. My skin felt cold. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I just listened. Silence. Then, a whisper. So faint, I almost didn't hear it. A dry, rasping voice. I bolted upright, scrambling for the light. It wouldn't turn on. I grabbed my phone, the glow of the screen barely pushing back the darkness. My fingers shook as I flicked on the flashlight. The closet was empty, but something felt wrong. The air in the room was thicker, like it was pressing in on me. I could feel it, something watching, something waiting. I grabbed my things. I was done. I didn't care if I had to sleep in my car. I was getting the hell out. But as I turned toward the door, a shadow moved. Not from the closet. From under the bed, I ran. I didn't stop to check. I didn't stop to breathe. I just ran. The hallway was different now. Darker, longer. The lights flickered, buzzing like dying flies. I reached the elevator and slammed the button. The doors didn't open. Behind me, something creaked. The air felt thick, suffocating. I didn't turn around. I bolted for the stairs, nearly tripping as I threw the door open. I ran. Down, down, down. The stairwell seemed endless. My lungs burned. And then I heard it. A voice, right behind me. Going somewhere? I don't remember the rest. I think I blacked out. When I came to, I was outside. My car keys were in my hand, and I was drenched in sweat. The hotel stood silent behind me, its windows dark and empty. I drove away. I didn't check out. I didn't tell anyone. I just left. And when I got home, I looked up the Red Pine Hotel. It burned down in 1993. Room 931 never existed.